If, so we're missing Marge and Ernie. Lad said he could not participate with us. So is there anybody else? Chris is not participating. She's celebrating son's birthday.
In Arizona.
Pardon?
In Arizona.
Yeah, she said. And Fred, aren't you supposed to be in the hospital getting a new hip? When's that? Oh, Thursday.
I think I got a meeting Thursday. The way this is going.
So is it 3:30? We've got 2 minutes to hopefully Ernie and Marge will tune in. But
Oh, sorry.
Right. I had a shoulder done by Schofield in the same firm and it was excellent. So when this came up, I just went right to that.
Right.
Oh, really?
Oh, did you really? He's
You know,
quirky.
I like Rose. Did Rose work with you?
His
No.
wife,
No, she,
talking about quirky?
no, right. My wife really did not care for him because he's got a little bit different. It's not bad. It's not cool.
Right.
right.
It's not a bad business.
No, but it's, there's only one of my kind.
He has 80 something or other.
But I liked it, and I went there because of Schofield's and after we talked, and boy, he's straight and honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
But he now has his wife, who has a MD, doctorate. She has got a list like this, and she's really his patient person, and she's been on the phone with you. I've been calling her for stupid questions, and man, she's back and taking care of everything.
Probably has Asperger's. So they take everything literally. And they don't get, because we have a nephew, or I have a nephew. Well, he's your nephew too, I guess, since you married me. And he has Asperger's. He just can be. But you can't, go do an idiom on him or, something like that.
Oh, good, Ernie
He
got it.
just doesn't.
Great. Okay, Ernie, sorry
That's
for
good.
the last minute switch. Another Zoom session was going longer than we had anticipated. So,
No, that's fine. My apologies for not being there in person. I just didn't have the time to do the travel today.
all right, well, we're thrilled that we're all here. The only person that we think should be here is Marge. So I'm just hoping she's checking her email at some time, okay? So, Steve, this was Chris's turn, but you're double hitting for us, so.
I'm not really double duty. This is my second motion of the day.
Is it the same one you've already delivered today?
No.
Okay, you're giving us a fresh version. This
Worthy
is,
of something new.
this is.
This poor guy was at the other meeting. So he concerned me. So this meeting-
No, I think if Mike and I were asked to vote, we would vote for you to do a repeat because it was that good.
Yeah, it was a good one.
It was a good, do you want to save this for future and go back to your other? Okay,
Copy.
all right. You got our attention now.
Yeah, I typed this one out so I could give it
Yeah,
to you. So each time we meet, as Deborah just said, she asked Christopher to open with a prayer because we're not any good at doing the technology stuff, okay? So we were supposed to come up with something, and sometimes we run out of ideas trying to come up with something different. I remember a former pastor who said, prayer is like sitting on the lap of God. And I've always loved that visible description. And there are many verses in the Bible which contribute to that image. Probably the most popular one comes from Matthew 19. Jesus said, let the little children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. But the Psalms are full of this kind of a discussion. Psalms 3, I lay down and slept, I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. Psalm 5, in the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my request before you and wait patiently. Psalm 119, which is now a song, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. The religious blogger, a guy by the name of Bob Hostetler, writes that there are 5 ways to make prayer a conversation with God. Number 1, listen. Let your mind work. Number 2, write, as in a journal. Number 3, read, as in finding prayers you like, and then use them. Number 4, I love this one, ask questions of God. And number 5, wait, and let time provide answers to your prayers. So now let's have a collective conversation with God. Heavenly Father, in our busy lives, help us make time for conversations with you. Teach us, guide us, help us find new ways to feel your love. Today, we pray for all of us. We pray on behalf of all of us. Help us in this work. May our task today and our collective work of this task force be acceptable to you. May our work find new ways to share Christ's love with not only our congregation, but beyond through the use of technology. And one final request, take good care of Fred this week as he gets his new hip. This we ask in your name, amen.
Thank you. Thank you
Wonderfully
for all.
delivered and shared. Michael, Marge, Sandy, and Ernie, thanks for that last minute switcheroo on the Zoom link. We had another Zoom meeting overlapping, so I needed to send out a new link. So thanks for checking yourselves and your emails. So this is another hopping task force here with a lot of action going on. And Mike did send out his findings today. So if you have not yet had a chance to look at them, could you pull them up on your phone or your computer? Or if you need a printed copy, if someone gives it to me, I'm happy. Well, wait a second, I can, let me go make a copy. All right, so I shall go make it. This is the combo, or this is Lad's, or this is Mike's? What do we get? This is Mike's.
Mike built on lab.
Right, I took LADs, basically took LADs, added the online results.
Okay, so we do now have a combo. This is a combo. We shall leave the room, make a copy, and but don't stop on the conversation, okay? Mike, could you take it high up a little bit about, wait a second, I want to use time wisely. I don't think we need to review and talk about everything that we said, because if everybody has this, I think what's most important is the, so what, now what did we learn? So that's the conversation we should have. Does everyone agree on that approach? What did it tell us that will help us build our report that Steve is going to put together? But I am now exiting the room to make Fred and Jane a.
Sorry. about that.
That's not.
I think you're-
So feel free to jump in and, Mike, do you want to?
Well, I think the only thing I would say about this, I also, even though I was the one that was combining the data, I was actually pulling from the Google Doc. I converted it to Excel. Long story short, I spent more time just compiling the data than I did actually analyzing it. And since I just got it sent out this morning, I really haven't had time to reflect on it or say, what is this really telling me? I did think there were some interesting comments on the comment pages. And I found that where I was spending all my time reading the comments and really less time on the, percentages and those kind of things. So, I don't know that everyone's had a chance to look at it and think about what it's telling me. And frankly, I don't know that I have opinion on what it's telling me. There were a couple of surprises in here, not surprises, maybe not the things I expected to see, but it wasn't bad.
Or baby boomers dominate congregation.
Pretty, there were some learnings, particularly in the comments, as Mike said, and but a couple of things were intriguing, like the newsletter is the thing people read the most least frequently, but they feel very informed because we have so many other sources to draw from. People truly feel very informed. I think there are more people that responded that they're comfortable or very comfortable with using their technology, despite what we might have thought, but they're still open to some training. And they're open to primarily in person and a mix of online. And the other thing I saw, Ernie, was nobody looks at the instructions for the website. think
Yep.
that's-
And yet I was surprised by the number of people that say they go there frequently.
They use the website, but they don't look at the instructions.
Or, so right on
Here,
the,
Tapioca. I didn't send Pastor Blythe the link. I'm sorry, but thank you for finding us.
You didn't send you didn't send it to me either, but is there a document you're all looking at that I don't have?
This is the-
Well, maybe you did.
Well, I thought Mike sent it to you.
Included you on it, but I will send it right now. Well, let's see, I gotta have it.
Yeah. So let me see if I can,
or we're on labs. This,
Well, that's a great question.
wasn't your 74?
You have one with, did I print it wrong?
Yeah, you print the.
I did this after the last meeting and before here, so I was like, I thought I just quickly pulled the.
all right, who needs it besides Pastor and, because it's coming, I'm sending it now. Okay, Mike, I think you sent it to Deborah, Steve, Ernie, Jane, Fred, and Sandy, and Liv. We just left out Pastor.
Oh, sorry.
We just left out- So if you could look at your inbox, it's coming your way.
Thank you.
Okay. Should I look at his email? So,
All right,
he just circulated his.
This is
Somebody else will go
report. This is it.
this isn't Mike's report. Okay,
Certainly.
Then- so I will now move over there so you can look at Mike's report with me here or no.
I think the rest of you can talk. I mean, we understand the general thrust of this thing. So what we really want to do today, I think, is identify,
Theme of so what, now what?
yeah,
And I'm gonna go to Mike and Sandy. How about that? Because you know the data closest. What are the themes that we can take away from the learnings? Or the input, excuse me.
Well, just one thing, and I think Sandy already touched on this, and I was kind of not paying enough attention. I think our generally speaking, it tells me that the people that are interested in tech are a little more tech savvy. Not that everyone has to be on the same upper level of tech savvy, but there's more users, more people that are comfortable with our tech or tech things we offer than I thought maybe there would be. I thought there would be a bigger gap, bigger divide, and there really isn't. There's a lot of people that are saying they're comfortable using their smartphone or they're comfortable, accessing a website.
Really?
So could I take that from the, let me try it. The survey showed us that many people are comfortable, but there still is opportunity and appetite for people who would like to be trained. Because that's what I read, is that there's a great openness for people to get training on things they are not comfortable.
and what we don't know is if those who are most uncomfortable didn't fill out the survey. That's what we don't know. The other thing that surprised me is how small the seasonal participation was. Was it 16 you got there?
Yeah.
Out of all, we all know that there are a lot more seasonal snowbirds than that as a percent of our congregation. So that one is challenging to me because they're the ones we want to, quote, use technology to stay connected. So I don't know if there's a way to reach out to them as a group or if it's too late, but I mean, that was one of my worries when I looked at the data.
So I'm gonna make a presumption, okay, Ernie?
I was just going to offer that, we should think about what were people telling us when they said they're very comfortable. Because the majority of, my tablet, my smartphone, my laptop, I am very comfortable. And does that mean, I use my smartphone to make phone calls and to look up contacts, and I'm very comfortable with that. And, they don't have any, they're not responding saying, I use it for 100 different things.
No, you're right. If they have to switch from Facebook to watching it live on the web, it becomes trickier.
So I was astounded by how many people said how comfortable they were, but I'm not sure we know what it means.
So I'm going to do the, time is the non-renewable resource for a task force. And, because we did get a decent sample, even though we do not have as many proportionate of the seasonals. If we were to make a recommendation or comment in our report to the council about those who responded, we have two camps. We have people who are highly comfortable, all right, and then we have people who would like to learn. Couldn't that be something that could play out, that even if you didn't respond, you'd find yourself in one of those two camps, that you would either feel comfortable or you'd be willing to learn? And those who say, heck no, I never want to learn. This is like, they're not going to change their vote at the ballot box. Okay, so we're not going to get them to embrace technology, but the people who would like to learn are open to learning. And that would be our recommendation, that there would be further study of what people would like to specifically learn about. So I'm a little bit concerned if we do we have time between now and October 24th to do more studies and more discernments, when this is the educational part of the recommendation to the council versus these are also things we want to do on our other four focus. But I'm happy to go in a different direction. I throw that out. Jane.
I would say the people that are cheating and saying, oh, I'm really good about that, is probably our friend, the older people that, yeah, we use it, that we don't realize what's all out there. And we're going, so don't spend a lot of money on us, because we're going to be gone. I think you've got to start looking at the next generation, the baby boomers and the younger are going to know. I mean, they've got to pick up, because everything's on either a phone or, they don't even know what it is to read a paper.
The demographic breakdown does tell us who our customers are. Our major customers.
Yeah.
Which your major customer is
Yeah.
well, and I was going on the 50%, but I would also go that I still think our customer is older than baby boomers.
Yeah, we're on the borderline. Well, yeah, we were borderline baby boomers.
But, okay, I'd like to debate, would we really say we're holding classes for baby boomers today and nobody else can come?
No.
So I think it's that we're offering this and we're offering this after but it's not, I want to be careful. I don't think it's the task force's job to decide what we would be training on. I think our job was to say, we wanted to hear how people felt in general to give us enough something that we could say to the council.
Years ago, they had a class of technology for those who wanted to learn more.
Mhm.
And I had a computer and I did a lot of stuff, but I wasn't savvy. And I thought, I'm going to go and learn. Well, half of the class was dedicated to how to turn it on. And it was just the basic baby steps. And I came home and went, oh,
So I'm going to go back to, as I've been pondering this, I think these people who are all saying they're very comfortable, whether they're saying they're very comfortable with only the very one thing they use that device for,
Yeah.
or whether they're very comfortable on 10 things, I think the opportunity is we can help them get comfortable with more aspects of it. Because if they're very comfortable with anything, great, let's help you get comfortable with even more.
I'm comfortable with my computer, but I do not go on Facebook, so Facebook's not in my language.
And the church doesn't require you to. We're
Yeah.
not offering anything exclusively there, I think.
Wouldn't that also be part of our findings or recommendations is there's no one single device, there's no one single channel that we expect everyone to participate through, but being aware of the many ways that we would want to elevate the opportunities for those who would like to find something that is comfortable to them.
Well, I would build on that, and maybe we all made a mistake, myself included, of not including all of the different social media options to find out what people use, but I mean, 10 days from now, the growth committee is going to talk about how do we grow the Saturday night service. And I've asked people like Jura Zebist, who is a regular attendee, she said, it's not through Facebook. She said, if you're not doing all of these new social media, you're not reaching the people who go to Saturday night services. And I think I'm trying to get to a recommendation to the council. And obviously this goes to Michael and Pastor and the professional staff. The diversity of not only the tool, but the medium that have to be engaged as a growing church is so incredible, because not one fits all. And we're not going to reach people with just Facebook and even a website.
Yeah. In fact, I'm thinking of the group that was up front, all the new members this Sunday. And I can pick out a bunch of them that I know that came because of location. And once they had that initial experience, in fact, we went and sat with a family who came down here, and the only reason they connected with us was the fact that they had to find a place to live in Sarasota, or wanted to, and their parents had a place on Longboat. They became introduced. Now they live way beyond the onion fields.
No celery fields, Fred.
The celery fields. But that initial contact wasn't by Facebook.
Yeah.
It wasn't by any other medium. It happened to be, they were close. And I think of Matt, they are close. And it just, but what you're saying is there's a huge opportunity outside of that, that we aren't reaching obviously.
So, showing my ignorance of the organization of the church, is there a communications committee who looks at the many channels that would be available, channels, methodologies? Do we have a communications committee? Could we recommend there be a communications committee who would work on this? I'm trying to figure out how to take what we are learning and have something go so the council could go, well, that would be worth considering or not.
At the moment, the growth committee seems to be doing a lot of the, how do we tie into advertising? How do we optimize the website? That might be a future task for a communications committee, but it doesn't exist at the moment. And I think the growth team is the nearest thing. Steve, Michael?
So it's
You're
favorable.
muted.
Oh,
Yes,
I would
it's-
agree with that. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we don't have enough, as Michael says, we don't have enough volunteers to create another committee.
So that could be layered to the growth committee. If we decided to put that in.
Well, I think it's the kind of recommendations we should be making. Because it's pretty clear, there's not one, we can't just do the Facebook and go home because it's clear that by itself is not what everybody uses, and so we're stuck. I mean,
But I wonder if we need more of a coordinator than a committee. You know, is whoever, you know, everybody is supposed to submit their communications to, somebody should then be saying, well, this should be put in the printed bulletin for Sunday, this should be put online, this should be put on Facebook, this should be going on X, this should be going on Y. And some of them should go to 5 or 6 different places. But it's not because there's a group who's building it all, it's because there's somebody who is the orchestrator to say, which channel should this go out on? Is that reasonable?
We
Well,
all sort of
I
have
want
that.
to go, who would that be? So,
Michael does it.
We already sort of have that between myself and Nina. But yeah, I think I might have lost what we're trying to do.
Well, it seems to me, questions that the congregation feels extremely knowledgeable about what's happening in the church. To me, it seems the outreach piece is more for the growth committee as to how to reach the people who don't get the church stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good argument.
well, and that's actually could be one of our findings is that the people who understand what are going on in the church are feeling they're getting what they need, but we have heard from a whole, we don't know how everyone who's not highly connected to the church is feeling. There's more work to be learned there. Which of course comes over to the growth committee again.
How do most of these new people come? Just walk in the door?
Well, I wanna keep us, yes, we do not know, but that would be a growth committee thing. I wanna keep us on the AV tech as we think about what other nuggets came out of the survey that will inform our narrative to the church. Doesn't mean it's not a good question, okay? Doesn't mean it's not a good question.
Makes me think of a question which we would have thought of before the service.
So we see the results, now we go, oh, we should have.
Yeah, we should have asked. That's where I'm gonna go. Okay, communications planning, education planning is a process. It's not a singular event. So it's the continuing to figure out how do we move the big goal forward, which is more engaged. Remember, our guiding principles were that we want to deepen the connection of everyone who comes in contact with SAKLC.
One of the things that actually disturbed me is question 21.
Could you repeat it, please?
Question 21.
Yeah, well, I know, but yes, what's the topic?
Oh,
What's
to
the?
read and search e-learning. I don't know the final numbers, and probably Mike can give us the
Yeah.
final, but.
Yeah, there was, I read or searched our e-learning module, the final total responses were 78 no's, 20 yes.
Yeah.
That's the one I was teasing Ernie about. Everybody, nobody looks at the instructions.
But I mean, part of the reality is. If we in the church are not using that e-learning model. We are not knowledgeable about what's going on in the church, and we can't be helpful as ambassadors. I mean, that's the first thing I read into that is if we don't know what it is, where it is. And I would love to find out, for example, of those 25 people who joined yesterday, I'd love to ask them, how many of you were informed of this e-learning module's availability? And this isn't a criticism of anybody, and me as much as anybody. We haven't figured out how to use that. And it's essential to get people to understand the life of this church. There's no other place that does everything that that does. And so
So isn't the finding, I'm always, what we hear, and then what's our recommendation? Isn't the finding that we have these e-learning modules that by and large are underutilized or not used, and we have a great opportunity, that's another one of the, let's take advantage of what we already have in the cookie jar and promote it and engage people around that. Is that what you're?
yeah, and one of my ideas, Michael and Pastor, is that in this gift bag we give visitors, we ought to buy zip drives and have our name on it. And the one thing on that zip drive ought to be that e-learning module. So that everybody can take that home, stick it in their computer and go, oh.
It's a
I would
good
like one of
point.
those.
It's a good point. Very good point.
So you're gonna put that in the narrative, right?
I'll write it down.
Okay.
Or
So I'm
a simpler version of that is that we send emails to visitors to say, hey, it was great, you were in worship. Somewhere in that email, there's the link to the website. Maybe we need to have that for general access to the website to say, but also to say in that standard email, but by the way, here's a link to a particular page on the website that has this wonderful resource that by all means, knock your socks off and enjoy the website. But here's something we'd really like you to take for a spin, because you're going to learn a lot about us in this one page or this one link, this one exercise.
Well, and that also will save the extra work of having the links, using email is at least less costly way to connect people to the e-learning. We can also use QR codes and bulletins as an educational way for people to get to the e-learning modules.
And Nina has been in really close contact, bringing folks together for Sunday's event. She can easily follow up with an email that says, we really enjoyed having you on Sunday. Oh, by the way, and so that there's that kind of like, not backtracking, but that looking backward to the last cohort before we move forward to the next one, and send that link and encourage them to try it out. And a number of them might do it if the wording of that email says, this is a pretty new unit. We'd love to know what you think of it. How helpful is this?
Yeah, and that's that feedback loop that helps us stay connected with people. So was there any other question that annoyed you or made you happy that we could have a finding and a recommendation on? Did anybody have anything else that, Michael? Oh, I thought you were starting to talk, sorry.
Oh, I want to go back to something you said, and then I'm going to quit talking. And that is that the survey clearly tells us that we know how to communicate with the current congregation attendees. It doesn't help us on how to go beyond that. And that's what you said earlier, and I think that has to be a message from this group to the council, to the growth committee, others.
Lots of opportunity.
Yeah.
And it does help us to continue to start thinking about how to reach the seasonal people, how to reach the people who are periodic connectors with us. Now, is there a differentiation? And I don't know, we can't do a correlation between those who like to worship in person and those who like to worship online, remotely, about their happiness with, other than we know about the sound, we got that part, we know that part. But is there anything else in terms of, I guess if you're remote, you're relatively comfortable with something, even though you don't like the quality of what you're getting. So I guess I've answered my own question.
It's all you can get.
Yeah,
There you go.
so I've answered my own question.
Am I correct in just kind of in a simple way of saying what our challenge is? How do we let the community that lives are all around us, and I'm talking about Sarasota, Bradenton counties, know who we are, what we're doing, and create an interest in that or in us.
I tried with Pastor Eric at one point to look up who we are based on census codes. And what the census does is not good enough, specific enough to tell us. It's not effective for us to use. I mean,
But if somehow or another, the email website for anybody out there, whether
Website, I mean, you gotta go somewhere, you gotta know who they are. Go on the website.
we're trying to reach the community around us that don't know who we are.
But I'm gonna go to, that's the growth. I want us to stay focused on, we're interested in how we're using technology to educate and engage in, so we gotta keep our focus on the technology of how we're using that to, I would like us to try to focus on, we want to talk about in-person worship, remote worship, fellowship, tech, hygiene, and education. So we're kind of hitting the education one right now. All right, and we're gonna head into Ernie's chart in a moment. But I want, could you just, again, I'd like you to keep looking at the findings. Is there anything that we learned about education? This was not a survey to find out who likes Fellowship Hall or not. That's not what the survey really was driven to do. It was really driven to help us with the educational question. So do we have, Marge?
I just had a comment. It seems like that what we're talking about right now, and we've been alluding to, is that a lot of this really does fall under the growth committee. And maybe what we learned is that some of the things that we've learned in this survey, we can pass along to them and perhaps partner with them in some way using the technology. But I think part of it is an awareness that people don't know these tools are out there. And so we could help with the training of how to bring them the tools or to be able to allow them to use them more efficiently, but then work through the growth committee to identify who those people are. So it's sort of maybe a partnership that could be formed as a result of this. And that could be a recommendation.
so Pastor and Michael, building on what Mark just said, what percent do you believe of our members, attendees are seasonal?
Gosh.
Well, I missed the end of the question. What percentage are what now?
What percent of our attendees / members are seasonal?
Oh,
Because it's, I mean, where I'm going with this is it seems that those who get comfortable attending St. Armand's Key when they're down in Sarasota, if they make a move, join us. And that if there's a place where there's a high productivity and return on investment, we've got to figure out how to identify who are those seasonal visitors and how do we keep in touch with them on a more organized, strategic, professional level. That's where I'm trying to go with that.
Yeah.
With emails, couldn't there be a monthly or letter that goes out? This is what happened at St. Armand's Circle, or at the church on the circle, and tell them.
Well, there's a weekly email that goes out that does that.
And it goes out
Bi-weekly, actually, or every twice a week in some way. There's 2 emails that go out.
Do we reach all our seasons?
I can't tell you what percentage of seasonal people are on that list. When we send an email out, I think we're up to about 780 or 790 people that receive our emails, and our hit rate is actually really high. Like we're in the 50% rate of opens, which is for an organization pretty good. So in terms of email kind of communication like that, I think we're doing really well. We're starting to do a better job with Nina now in her position to collect email addresses when people fill out their cards or fill out things online. We're doing a better job of capturing that and following up on that. But I would be open to other ideas, but we already do put out 2 emails a week, and I wouldn't want to do any more.
Good.
I am talking more emails to those who aren't around. You know, make it a special one. Keep them in contact with us, that they know it's just the people that are not here.
Let me see if I'm listening to Michael. The 700 some people who get the emails, whenever we find that somebody's email, we add them to the subscription, right? So that they're getting it.
Yeah, there's a
Or do
little
they
card
pick
that
the
people
top
fill
end?
out, and one of the questions is, would you like to receive our weekly email? And you have to not only check it, but then provide your email address. So we're blessed that I would say 90% of the people who fill out those cards want to be put on our list.
So I think they were getting the people who are a periodic.
Like it just that they don't know what's going, yes, they know what's going on, but it wouldn't be click here if you want to join and do this type of thing, because they can't. I'm just saying, you know, hi snowbirds, this is what's happened, boom, and just keeping them there. Whereas that they don't feel like this is for somebody that's there because all these things are happening.
Well, I could kind of speak to that because we're the person we were just talking about, Lynn and I are. We have attended at St. Armand's for probably 6 years now, but we only joined 2 years ago when we became permanent residents. And we did that. We did the visitor card, got the emails, paid attention to what was going on here, even when we weren't in Sarasota. So I think it works. I mean, I know from our experience, I didn't read Connections every week when we weren't a member, but I think she did, those kinds of things. So it works. What you're saying works.
I would agree with that because I'm a snowbird. I'm in Wisconsin right now. And I feel really connected to the church because I read those weekly little connection updates, and it's really nice because I don't feel like I'm so far away.
That was good discussion. All right, I'm gonna move from the survey. If there's no other nuggets that anybody saw in the survey that we should bring to light. This is we don't want to, we're gonna go to Sandy first, then we're going to Ernie about what else did we learn in the survey.
I would just encourage people to read all the comments, because there are comments in the survey that relate not to AV, but they're still worthy of us seeing and hearing to be used in other parts of the church. So some of the comments are funny and some of them are very serious, and the best one is I filled this out because they made me, but beyond all that, there's some worthy suggestions in here for various parts of the church.
So to that point, are we okay that we share the findings with the survey to the growth committee? I mean, I'm not sure why we would keep them in our cookie jar. So I think that any committee that would benefit from reading, we would love to share the findings with. So that is another action item we could take. And then Sandy, are you done? I'm gonna move on to Ernie, or?
I often look for opportunities too, and an opportunity I think I saw here is online giving. Our online giving responses were pretty low, and there's probably additional opportunity for online giving. And I know it's in the connections every week, but they get stale if you see them all the time. You have to write it a different way and a different thing.
I was surprised that online giving was not that popular.
I was too.
Well, and showing my ignorance again, is there a stewardship offering committee, donation thrivability committee? What do we have who would like to also receive the cert? What kind of committee do we have that would benefit from knowing this? What's that committee?
I think the finance
Wonderful.
committee would quite like to hear that. Or not like to hear it, but appreciate hearing it.
Well, I think if it will help them boost the revenues, we might as well know what channels people are using. Okay, so I am not seeing a downside in sharing the survey results with other committees, because let everybody take their own interpretation and say, we should be doing something about this.
Just a side anecdote about that. We are seeing an increase in giving through the little QR codes that we put in the bulletin on Sunday. It took a little while to take, but now every week when I check, there's, I don't know, a dozen or so contributions that'll come in through that. They're not usually too large, but somebody sitting there who uses their phone to quickly send a $20, $25, $50 PayPal donation in. So
Interesting.
Yep. So QR codes, people who have learned to use them in restaurants are using them other places. So that was one of the outcomes of the COVID. Sandy, before I move to Ernie, are you good?
Yep.
You're good? Ernie, other nuggets from our survey that we can be acting upon?
Yeah, there were lots of comments talking about how much people appreciate viewing on demand, video on demand. So the whole notion of, watching it live is good for some people when it fits your schedule. But there's a lot of comments in here on, when I can't be there or I can't do it at that time, I really like being able to pull it up at my convenience. And so I wonder if that's a point we want to highlight. And I think the follow-on to that gets to be, that becomes one of the reasons why we've got to improve the professionalism of the stuff we put in the archives. It's because if you're attending live, maybe you're a little more tolerant of, gee, this is a worship service I'm attending. But if you're watching it from the archives, you may have different expectations. And if the sound is crappy for the first 6 minutes, you're not going to hang in there. You may just bail on it, and who knows if you're coming back. So the same with the Christian Ed stuff. If it's a really good class and you go into it on demand, you're coming back again. Whereas, if the quality of the recording just isn't that good, we may well lose you. So thinking about that tie between how do we really make sure that we, recognize people love video on demand and want to use more of it, and how do we promote that and get people to take advantage of that? And then the secondary being, and we better make sure it's of good quality because people may have high expectations for it.
Steve, are you comfortable with that recommendation?
I think I got it written down, but the beauty of this task force is that you all get a draft. So if I made a mistake, you'll still have time to correct it.
I've noticed everybody's very engaged on telling you how to do it better.
You have
Okay. They're very comfortable doing that, very comfortable. Mike, do you have a?
Michael's got something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael, yes.
I just want to add to what Ernie said. If you look, I don't know what slide it's on. It's on question 24, I guess, where people were leaving more detailed comments. I know we're still struggling with AV problems in the sanctuary, and we're working to fix them. But some of the comments about Sunday worship were interesting in that they were very specific in what they like to see on that. And people were referencing, different camera angles and seeing the words on the screen with the hymns, the text. I forget some of somebody had suggested, we should start showing more visuals on the live stream to make it more engaging. And they're kind of sophisticated comments about about that, but just as Ernie said, it goes to the argument for more professionalism in what we're doing on even a Saturday and Sunday, let alone all the other things we're doing.
You got the nuance on that, Steve?
I didn't add anything down here in particular, because I think it's already speaks to the quality of the presentations. My mind was wandering a little bit back to the debate about screens in the sanctuary. And no, because of the fact that I wonder if some of the people who wrote the comments that Michael was talking about, I wonder if these people would benefit if literally we had tablets that they could sit at their pew with, because I wonder if it's a visual thing for them. Hard to read the bulletin. I mean, you know, things like that. I mean, that's a way of solving that visibility access issue without even dealing with the issue of screens, because we would just have, let's just say we had 30 tablets that were programmed for that service, and anybody who wanted one on the way in could get it. It's just an idea.
However, tablets were probably the least used of any of the things that were on the survey. A lot of people didn't use tablets, not familiar with it.
I would push that as we're thinking forward, because our job as a task force is not what do we, in our phases from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that we need to think in the future of tablets. Phones are it. Okay, people use their phones in incredible ways, and it will only get more. So it's I think the bigger question is what is the role of the smartphone in your worship life, in your connection? And so I think there could be a whole bunch of things that one could explore through different kind of devices. What's the role of your computer? What's the role of your cell phone? What's the role of, and that's where you really look into the future. And we live in a society that people find their path. Okay, there is no one cereal anymore. There is no one sneaker anymore. Everybody wants it the way they want it. So I think thinking in terms of how people use and what they migrate to. All right, I am going to move us past the survey because we're done unless somebody wants to keep talking about the survey. I want to affirm that I think doing the survey was a very healthy process for the congregation because it demonstrated that their opinions were valued and we're going to do something with it. So it was a way to engage rather than just tell people what we're going to do with AV. So I want to thank Sandy for developing the survey. I want to thank everybody who weighed in on it, Mike, Fred, Jane, and Steve in terms of formatting and what worked and the promotion of the survey. Thank you, Marge, and those who did it during Sunday, and Ernie's special letter to each of the council chairmen to get more people on their team to answer it. And then thanks to Ladd and Mike for analyzing with Sandy's help on that. And I do think we always have to remember that we can't do anything without the staff. So Michael, could you please express our appreciation? Nina on boxes, Maggie on formatting, I mean, with the team and you for helping us through this. So I think that we have a good staff volunteer effort on this. Ernie?
Just one other learning about this that we should share with others is we put a lot of effort into promoting online and trying to get people to fill this out. And then in one Sunday, we got more results by making people fill it out in paper right there than we got weeks worth of pleading with people to fill it out online. We're doing something wrong with how we're trying to get people to fill it out online. We ought to be way ahead on the online version, and we're just not. So there's something there that we got to figure out.
I think it's survey burnout. I see surveys come through all the time on emails and I delete them.
But they're not all from SAKLC, are they?
That's true. That's true.
But that's part of the whole learning of our behaviors. So, I think, so, again, the nice part is we're not gonna do another one. So we hope other committees will learn from our survey experience, okay? So I am now going to get into remember, what are we gonna do with the other 5 priorities that we have? So again, everybody should have their copy of Ernie's latest hits for us to talk that through again. So does anybody need a copy of that, or are we good on the Ernie's greatest update? Ernie, what do you hope happens today with that?
Well, to the extent, if you've had a few minutes to go through it, maybe we can get some updates here. But the big shift I put in here was, the original work was, let's tour the facility and get our thoughts together about what assets do we have in which physical aspect of the church. And, then we're talking about, well, how would we sequence these things? And so now I've just totally, added another column and said, let's focus on the sequencing instead of focusing on the physical resource within the church. So now you'll see, I just sorted it based on everything that seems like phase 0 to me, things that seem like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then a phase 4, which, is we haven't figured out what to do with it yet. And I'd love to hear from people on what we should do with those. And then, of course, the secondary issue is, if we've got it in the right phase, are we thinking about the impact correctly? Do we really have a number 5 impact means this is the most important thing, and 4 is slightly less and 3 is slightly less, etc. So if we can end up coming up with how would we sequence these and do we have the importance of them figured out well, I think that becomes good fodder to then, figure out what do we put into our recommendations. So has anybody had a chance to go through and, look at it with that lens yet?
I mean, I looked at the phase recommendations that you've got to see if there's any place that I disagreed with them. I don't have any place where I disagreed with your phases.
All right, well, that's a start. So in the phases, is there anyone that's going, no, it should not be there, it should be here?
You'll see there's a lot of items in phase 1, and many of them are not expected to be highly expensive. So it's not like we're loading up and saying we need $500,000 to go do phase 1. But there clearly is some real money in here. The other thing, Michael, is I tried to take out some that we had on there, like, fix the chorus microphones, and
Right.
the solution was, no, let's just rip them out.
Right.
So I don't know if anybody noticed this Sunday, but the dangling microphones are no longer dangling. So if there's anything else that isn't needed here because it's redundant, we're already taking care of it, that kind of thing, we ought to take that off as well.
So do I get the sense from Ernie, Michael, and Pastor that most of the things which you have listed as 0 or 1 are items that you guys are sort of dealing with right now? Would that be accurate or no?
Yeah, everything that Ernie has listed in phase 0 is is happening or is scheduled to happen soon. And the things in phase one are being considered as we speak. Whether or not we'll be able to fund them, or where they'll go, I don't know. But the majority of those we're already talking about and having people quoting for.
Most of the things are sound. Wherever you go, it's sound.
So, yeah.
Well, Ernie, you did a good job, and there's a lot of work. I can see putting this together. It's just a matter of how do we push it into action?
I mean, as a task force, Ernie, you're gonna say something.
Well, just to loop back to our earlier discussion about shortage of volunteers, some of these can be fixed with money because you can go hire somebody to take care of it. Some of these are going to require arms and legs to make it happen. And so we're going to have to really think about which of these do we really feel are high impact and we really ought to be driving to get a volunteer force together to make these happen, versus which are kind of good ideas that we'll see if somebody wants to take it on. A lot of the training stuff, for instance, I don't see us going out and hiring, a training team. That's the kind of stuff we've got people who could do it if they're willing to do it and, put the energy into it.
What I was going to say is that it's easy when you look at this to say, well, we're guilty of doing the same thing that we saw as the problem, which is we're funding all the infrastructure and we're not funding how do we help the user. And so personally, I think what we have to do is we have to spend a little bit more time on the training side, because that's clearly the best thing we can do to help the users. And if you skip over this if you go to the narratives, you will find, that a lad rewrote the whole training section in the narrative. And some of that's already outdated because he starts with saying, first we're going to train the professional. Well, we've gone over that now, so it's got to be updated. But I think that as a task force that's focused on how do we help the individual who's at worship or in a Zoom class or whatever, I think we've got to beef that whole section up, because that's really what our mission was. Does that make sense?
I think it's nice, but I think that we have an opportunity to also make sure that we put forth about equipment. I know that there's a lot of stuff going on, but if we aren't looking forward, that's part of what we're supposed to do. So I think it's a given that we have to do training. That's absolutely a given, because we've got resources that people don't know about. But I think it would be a shame for the task force not to say, and these would, I love how we've got the 5 sections. And I think we need to be focused on what do we want to say in each of those 5 sections that has not been the topic of conversation so far. Because I loved the narrative about how everyone used their imagination of what could happen in Fellowship Hall. Well, we now got to tell them, so to make that happen, we need this thinking forward. So I'm all for it, but I view the whole education module as the education module. I think we're focused on in-person worship, virtual remote worship, and the optimizing of Fellowship Hall. And I think the more we can spark imagination around there, I think the value of us existing is there. I also think, to your point about Ernie, is it money? Is it humans? Is it operating expense? I think we should actually think in the narrative to code it that way. Have a column that this is going to take, this is operational money, people. This is capital money, people, or not people. This is operational. This is capital. This is volunteer. This is human energy that has to be, so that people won't get confused and they can see, oh, well, this is a budget thing. Oh, we better form another little task force to work on this, or we need to tell Michael Bodnick to take on 3 new projects. All right, so I think we've got to be very clear on this is capital, this is program, this is operating, and this is human capital.
Which may loop back to the spreadsheet for H0 is what happens when the task force ends. We've really got to, not just identify, so how would we approach these, but I'd sure like to see some recommendations on, so how would we organize it? How do we continue to pursue this so that it doesn't end up just being a report that, we get a thank you for a good report and it gets put on the shelf and there it is.
So could, just understanding, again, showing the ignorance, what is the process to operationalize things at St. Armand's Key Lutheran Church? Where's that planning for what we're operationalizing in the next year? Where's that come out of? So council is in there deciding what we're gonna do. So we're going to, that would say that we hand this to the council and say, okay, your turn.
Well, let me give a good example. So the growth task force came up with a number of recommendations for increased advertising and marketing. And so we took that recommendation to the budget committee. And the budget committee put money in the budget for advertising. And then the council looked at that and affirmed that, and they approved the budget and recommended it to the congregation. So that'd be a good example of taking an idea and how did it become reality. And now we're in an interesting place because one of the big price items in there was advertising at the airport. And the truth is, we just can't, we're in line waiting, but we're not going to be able to spend that money this year at the airport. And so now Alan Graff, Michael Pastor, others are looking at where we might reprogram some of that advertising money. And some of it might go to emergencies that we didn't expect. Some of it might go to new forms of advertising, such as Twitter and things like that. Did I say anything else?
Well, just to go beyond that, that one also resulted in the council saying there isn't an existing area that clearly owns this responsibility that we can just tap into and say, here's the growth task force report, now go forward and implement it. We ended up saying, this is so important, we need to create a new standing committee and staff it with experts like Steve to be able to drive this forward. And so I think the same question applies here. Do we have an existing area that we can say they own and drive forward all this AV tech stuff? And do we hand this to them and say, okay, here you go, here's our input? Or where does it go? Michael, do we have a place for this to go?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I don't think we.
Oh, good.
All right, so I would like to suggest that before we can decide where it goes or what it is, I think we should hone in on the narrative. Knowing, Ernie, we've got that final chapter that has to be written. But I think thinking about the narrative from those 5 lenses and adding is this a capital expense? Is it an operating expense? Is it a human investment to that narrative? then we say, where would the task force recommend this flow to? And again, we could say, we think the educational should go to this group, we think that this should go to this group, but I don't think we're clear. I think we've got parts in different places, and I think we need to start getting them all in one place.
No, personally, I'm good with that. I think this is more of a conclusion of, once you see what are we recommending, then hopefully, you know, we are clear on, so what's the best way to make sure it actually has a way to move forward.
Do you want to help her, or can you take Ernie's stuff? Can you take what we did today and put it in the narrative for us to start having a conversation on that?
Well, what the current narrative was to visualize what we would be if all of this were implemented, and so are you going to change the narrative? Are you going to add to it? What are you thinking?
No, well, I might be confused, so straighten me out. I'm thinking our narrative for each of the 5 sections, we have this is what is possible. And underneath each narrative would be this is what we want to do. And that's the combo from today's surveys and from Ernie's papers. So I kind of looked at, you'll lose me if the narrative is all imagination and then over here we give you an operational plan. I think they need to be married in some way. But I'm okay, I'm just throwing it out there, pick it apart.
Reason I'm looking for
What do you mean?
the current one. I know it's here because I saw
Your
it before I
narrative.
left out. Yeah, because we have an organization. Here we go. So we have a section of what we've learned.
Yes,
And that would be major, the survey results, but
Yes.
it would be, then this is the vision, the narrative.
Yes.
Fellowship hall, training, et cetera. And the reason I'm taking this, and then we got our recommendations, so that what we learned, is that okay?
all right, so now I'll take this, I'll take your format, won't change it because it's very nicely done. Now I would do, our recommendations would again be regarding number 1, regarding number 2, regarding number 3. So I'm okay with that. We don't need to blend them in because that keeps them in the happy imaginative place. But then we go for each one of these, what are the things we are recommending? And Steve, it might, I don't know, weigh in, people. Is it better to have it in a narrative format? Because we just gave them a whole bunch of narrative. Or is it better just to have it bullet points, the fellowship hall, and then it gets into Ernie's phase 0, phase 1, phase 2. It's that, I mean, that's very charty. And we can just give the chart. I'm not the church
You're on
council.
mute.
I'm on mute. I'm in. How did we get on mute? Who's on mute?
A bullet list with target dates on would be effective.
Wait, are we in?
No, so I think.
I
Who's on
was,
mute? Oh, Sandy's, oh, okay. So Sandy, did you want to talk? I'm sorry, I was babbling.
yes, I said, I think bullet point lists with target dates on would be effective.
Okay, so rather than more narrative, can we just kind of take Ernie's and bring it over here? I think we could lose them with the columns. I think that we could lose the council with the columns. I think the columns were what helped us agree on stuff.
Oh, I was not gonna, what I was gonna do, following up on Sandy's recommendation, is that under the recommendations, we would, like he's got 1 through 6 here, I would just literally take this section in here.
Yes,
They
that's all your,
describe
no
it.
numbers,
Yeah.
no, this is what we want to do. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's a lift and paste. Huh? What?
I thought is the combination with the narrative. It gives you a nice vision. to
So
follow
you would
through.
like it to be fellowship and then stuff.
I think your vision is helpful.
Well, we weren't gonna delete it, we just,
Okay. I like what the way the narrative was put together and
I can experiment. We can see what we like.
I'm just,
Well, yeah.
that's just me, and I may only be one of the entire, group, so don't.
Well, what our goal is to get the council to go, oh, I get it. That's a good idea. Let us move it forward to the growth committee, or let us move it forward to the communications committee, or let us move it forward to. So it's the how to help the council understand that we put a lot of work into it. There was a lot of thought. And we'd like this to go places that people will act on it.
I would like to extend your conversation, because I think it's really helpful. I'm okay with everything I've heard here thus far, but I keep looking at, okay, what happens next? And let's use technology as an example. The beauty of what's happening with technology at church right now is frankly that it's not encumbered by a committee. It is Michael and Pastor and Ernie who are getting it done with vendors. And when you're dealing with technology, I'm not sure any committee should mess this up. You certainly don't want this non-techie dealing with tech issues in the growth committee, because I could make no contribution. So
we can say that we want Ernie, Pastor, and Michael to take the AV task force and
Well,
implement it.
I mean, what you've seen in some other things I've written is I am more and more empowering professional and church leadership. I mean, that's really those guys.
Well, and actually, they live it day in and day out,
Exactly.
so,
Okay,
yeah, I don't care where it goes,
Okay.
but Ernie wants it to go somewhere. So, if Ernie and Pastor and Michael are happy that they're in charge, and they can say, no, this one has to be done by this person. But again, they can delegate too. I mean, Michael and Pastor can delegate.
I mean, what the church council did a month ago is they authorized such sums as are necessary to fix technology. And that's enabled those people to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And that's why I like that concept.
When did we
Yeah,
know
and-
that we ran out of money?
Well, they keep the council updated on
Okay.
cost estimates.
Ernie, do you
But
have
it-
thoughts?
It may turn out that, right now, we're dealing with a very urgent situation and, we are out making decisions and spending money to get us back on an even keel. But maybe going forward, the recommendation for this group is we ought to just establish some kind of affordable AV investment budget each year and not go to the council with, here's 6 different items we want you to approve buying. It's more like, yeah, we need $50,000 every year, and we need a group of people to, manage that investment so that every year we're making progress. We can't afford 100,000 a year, so it's 50,000 a year. Do the best you can with 50,000 a year, and maybe that's the kind of, approach you're describing that I'm hearing, Steve, is that it's not a committee and it's not, requesting approval for one thing at a time. It's more, you need somebody to steer the ship, and we just need to establish so how big is the ship?
It's a line item.
Oh, well, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. All right, so are you comfortable? So I'm in the cut and paste, but I'm back to, do we even want to? I think we have to give people a little bit of what the heck it is that we would want in this annual allocation of 100,000. Remember, one of the drivers of why our due date was October was to get something into the budget. So if the driver is, hello, church council, your AV task force has been hard at work. And we have discerned, we can give you background on all kinds of things, but the bottom line is, you please put 100,000 into the budget for capital and operations, and we are going to have it managed.
I like the idea of a fund. Having said on the budgets we've done in the last 2-3 years, I would be cautious to recommend 100,000 because I'm not sure where I find it.
So what is the?
I don't know what the right amount is.
Well, I was into the fund versus the budget. You don't want to say budget?
Oh, no, I'm
You're
fine
good with
with,
us saying budget.
I don't care whether you use fund or budget. I'm just saying part of the reason that I like, quote, that professional leadership on technology is they will understand what is urgent. They will understand what is affordable and accessible, i.e. can you get it? And that they can make a decision in the interest of the church in a way that I don't know that the rest of us, even in writing a report, can do. And I don't, without conversations with the budget committee and others, I don't know what we can make that number look like right now. That's all I'm saying.
All right, so is what we want to do is we want to say our recommendation is there should be a budgeted line of AV technology annually that it needs, and these are what we're thinking should be included, but our job as a task force was not to pick and choose or get quotes. We would like the staff and council, Ernie, what hat are you wearing in this thing? Are you the what is it? We're saying staff and, or just staff, the professional leadership. We're having the professional leadership will decide what is needed on what time frame and how we would pull it together. So we're talking into, we need to have something in the budget. We don't know what it is, but we're gonna let Michael and Pastor and Ernie decide.
Well, or Pastor and Michael and volunteers that they choose to enlist. You know.
Okay, so again, it goes back to our professional staff who will decide whose input they would like to get to determine what we need. How's that feel?
Sure.
Well, I'm not
No,
trying to push.
Well,
I'm just- you're writing. You're
I'm just
writing.
taking notes.
Yes.
I'm not writing.
By
Okay,
determining what they need, you're referring to a priority list.
yeah, and I thought, Steve, I thought you said it beautifully. They know what is achievable, how can we do it? And I do agree, let's not mess in their space.
Is there any way of making it like a dream mill list? This is what we want. This is it.
Yeah.
Dream list.
That is.
And,
Yeah, so this is
you
the
know, put
dream
some
list.
stuff on it.
And then decide how much money
Yeah,
the church can afford to budget each year to.
people see dream lists with price after it. Sometimes they go, that's affordable for me. And might just, like the owls. That should be so easy to pick up a couple more owls. If you know what I'm talking, you know, the owls.
Sure.
Yeah, owls. Yeah, I mean. I wish there were some little things that you could put on, just a dream, you know, a want list, and this is what it's gonna cost. It might spur the congregation on to say, well, I'd like to give a couple hundred to that, because I think that's pretty important.
Well, I think that can come out, I agree, I think the more lists with what it is, and that could be the Michael and Pastor Ken deciding, let's get bids on this, because it's not fitting in over here.
Michael, what they're telling you is that, yeah, you ought to listen, because you know how you divided that pipe organ into 100 different pieces, which
Right.
you can buy one pipe or whatever. They want us to do the same with technology. So are you up for that?
I
Excited.
think, yeah,
Maybe Michael better not ask for it. He's the organ guy. Somebody else ought to get the tech guy to do this.
all right, we're in the 5-minute running here. Okay, I want to ask our next meeting, I believe is on October 2nd. Ernie, did we get approval of when the church council will meet on the 24th? Did we get a okey dokey on that?
No, we have not.
We
I
have-
haven't gotten that done yet, but keep that time on hold because that's still what I'm aiming for.
So I'm checking Steve's bandwidth right now, because at this moment, I'm now just checking this in here when our next one is. So our next meeting is on Monday, October 2nd in the morning, 9:15. Do you have enough time between now and then?
Yes.
You're good on that? Okay, so Steve's gonna, take what we've already done, gonna add some more stuff to it. We're gonna read it and think about if you were a church council member, how does this resonate with you? Okay, all right, is there a better format? And then I do want us not just to wordsmith it, what is missing? I want you to look at, in order for church council to approve or advance or feel comfortable, what is missing in the narrative, okay? Because that can be in that recommendation section that we would add in there. Okay. And you can do, and I'll send it out ahead of that.
Yeah. I'll
try to get
it done.
All right, okay.
What time?
It's at 9:15 to 10:45. We're going with the 90-minute segments. Okay, and we can always quit early if we've achieved everything we need. Okay.
Is that a breakfast meeting?
There's donuts, okay? There's donuts at the 9:15. For those of you who are on the Zooms, we have fish crackers, whatever those things are, trail mix, and crackers and peanut butter for those who are not in the house, okay? So you've missed some nice, we got some kind bars here too. So it would have been worth your trip over here, but next time it's donuts,
On the
okay?
agenda that you publish, could there be like a little menu?
I could, to increase in-person participation. So,
So Michael, not for October 2nd, because you and Pastor and I have to leave at 10 o'clock. So we'll have to zoom in and then switch
so
meetings.
you've got another thing to do, okay? All right. All right, is 9:15 work for everybody? Is that time okay for a start?
If we're gonna lose them, I recommend 9 o'clock.
Would you want 9 instead? I can't do it before
Yes.
9. I got another meeting. Do we want to move to 9 a.m.?
Yes,
Fine with me.
Right, this is on, what day is this? Yes, we shall move this to 9 o'clock. Start. And which makes donuts even more important, okay? So, this is it. So if I make it 9 o'clock, can Pastor and Michael be in person for donuts or no? They have another, no, because they got another meeting, it starts at 10. What time your
Yeah.
next?
right.
meeting? What time's the meeting after this?
10?
10? All right, we're just having the meetings going from 9 to 10 on the Zoom. And if you're here, I'm still giving you donuts. Okay, it's a 1-hour meeting. That we don't lose anybody, no one feels left out, okay? Okey dokey, all right,
Deborah, I just have one question.
yes.
Do we want to put anything in the connections for this week? Any
Hmm.
update of any kind?
Yeah, that's interesting, because we already thanked everybody for their participation. So I think I would like to recommend you take a break for a week, okay?
I love that.
Yeah, I can take a break for the week. And then we'll talk about it if there's something that emerges, but it might be possible we won't do anything until October 2nd with our next update for the world. Okay? And that March, that then gives you and Chris all kinds of opportunities to think how we want to spotlight what's already working well at SAKLC. So that you got a reprieve from connections, but you and Chris can get on your communication imagination. Okay?
We've actually started a conversation about it, so that's great.
Okay, great. Okay. Other things at this time. So in terms of in between, let me ask this question. If we're going to share the survey with other people, the survey findings, there's something about packaging. And does it look the way we would want other people to look at it? Or might it behoove us to take a fresh look at the findings and maybe put a little cover to it, maybe help people understand the reasoning or our summary comments? Could I ask Sandy to look at that? Would that be on how we might distribute the survey in a way that, because if I'm a committee who got it, it's like, well, now what am I supposed to do with it? And what was important out of this?
Yes, let me give a little thought to how that works, and Mike, I would like your thoughts maybe on how you want to slice and dice it, if you want to do that at all, so that we get the right slides in it.
Yeah, and you know, this really to me is still pretty raw, so. You know, I'm more than happy to work with you, Sandy. If
Okay.
you come up with some verbiage, you wanna lay it out a certain way, I can help you get it pasted into something.
Yeah, give me a few days to think about it.
Yeah, me too.
All
I
right,
need a
so
couple of
Mike
day
and
reprieve.
Sandy are going to separately think and then jointly communicate, okay? All right, good. Okay, on the survey, thinking about, let's take it out of our cookie jar and others might enjoy it, okay? All right. Okay, everyone, I'm gonna see you either on the Zoom or in person on October 2nd. Fred, we're gonna keep you in our prayers.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be here.
All right, is anybody,
Well,
oh,
maybe.
well, you may.
He'll be.
You might be.
He's-
Bright's a believer. Up.
Right away, but today she told me bring your pajamas.
All right, anything else on the team before we say thank you very much and I end the Zoom recording? Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you, Pastor Michael. Sorry I omitted you. That's a big faux pas. I'll try not to do that the next time. Okay.
What do you think of the idea of foundation is so concerned about trying to flex them? What if they sponsored a foundation hall instead of fellowship,
Foundation.
Foundation.
instead of fellowship? And name it after, let them go and get their, have a reason to go ask for.
I'll tell you, based on